Hey, fifth grade, for today's poetry lesson, we're going to be reading the Elegy for a Diver by Peter Menke. This is the best loved poem about an athlete I've ever taught. It's gorgeous, heartbreaking, and haunting. An Elegy for a Diver. Peter Menke sings to an athlete whose body has betrayed him, as all bodies must. So we'll go ahead and take a look at this. All right, just follow along as I read. By the way, Elegy is a poem in memory of someone who has passed on. So you see that you have a part 1 and a part 2 here. This is significant, and it isn't something that we've seen in a lot of poems before. So as I read, just be thinking about why the poet may have chosen to break this poem into 2 parts the way that he did. All right, I will get started now. Jackknife, swan dive, gainer, twist, high off the board you'd pierce the sky, and split the apple of the devil's sun, and spit in the sun's fierce eye. When you were young you never missed, archer diver who flew too high, so everything later became undone. Later everything burned to ash. Wings too close to the sun broke down. Jackknife, swan dive, gainer, twist. Can't be done on the ground, and nothing in your diver's past had warned you that a diver drowns when nothing replaces what is missed. Everything beautiful falls away. Jackknife, swan dive, gainer, twist. Muscles drop and skin turns coarse. Even the skin the sun has kissed. You drank the sun down every day until the sun no longer existed, and only one drink had any force. Only the drink had any force. Archer diver who flew too high, when you were young you never missed, and spit in the sun's fierce eye. Later everything burned to ash, everything beautiful falls away. Even the skin the sun has kissed. Jackknife, swan dive, gainer, twist. Part 2. And now I see your bones in dreams, turning and twisting below our feet. Finger bones bending out like wings, as once again your body sings. Swan diving through the stone that sparks your skull and shoulder bones. Layer by layer and over, you flash through the limestone, sand and lava, feet together and backbone arched like an arrow aimed at the devil's heart. The dead are watching your perfect dive, clicking their fingers as if alive. High off the board, heck with the chances, once again your body dances. Anything done well shines forever, only polished by dust's dark weather. Diver, diver, diving still, now and forever I praise your skill. It's important to note that this poem is about a diver, which many of you probably have no idea about. But the part that is repeated throughout the poem, jackknife, swan dive, gainer, twist, those are moves in a dive. Those are things that divers do. I don't know if you've ever watched the Olympics, competitive diving. There's a lot of skill and execution involved in doing that. And that's about the only time, if I'm really honest, that I've ever seen anything like that. But it is kind of an amazing thing to watch. And so this poem is about a diver who, in their younger years, in their prime, were just phenomenal. They never missed. They were perfect when they dove. But eventually they came to a point in their life when they could no longer execute those moves in their dive. And so they became very sad because it was something that was part of their life for so long, and they couldn't replace the diving, the void that diving filled for them. And so we talked about this if you were in class this last week, we talked about the poem before, To an Athlete Dying Young. We talked about Brett Favre and how he was a quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. And he really brought a lot of fame and success to the Packers team. He kind of put them on the map. They hadn't done a whole lot in a while, and then he just started lighting things up. The thing about that is that he retired, and then he came back, and then he retired again, and then he came back. And so if he had retired and stayed retired, all that anyone would have known about Brett Favre was that he was an amazing quarterback who put Green Bay on the map, or who had a very successful career in Green Bay. But when he came back, he wasn't the same quarterback that he once was, because he was an old man playing a young man's game. And so he kind of stunk it up, if we're really being honest. And so he retired, and then he came back again, and he stunk it up some more. And so now that's not something that people can forget. They won't think of him as that amazing quarterback that brought a lot of success to Green Bay. They think of him as that guy who should have stayed out of the game and shouldn't have kept coming back, because he just wasn't able to perform the way he had when he was young. I imagine that what Brett Favre went through is very similar to what this athlete went through. When it's so much a part of who you are, when your body is not able to perform in that way anymore, it's kind of a sad thing. I imagine it's hard to let go of. And so we see that in part one. You see that he's young and he's able to do all of these moves. And then in part two, I hope you noticed the change in the text. This is all italic. In part two, I believe that's after the athlete has died, after the diver has left his earthly body behind. And this is what the poet is imagining him doing in the afterlife, or wherever he, whatever happens for him after he passes. And so he's once again able to dive because he's left his earthly body behind. And so he imagines that brings happiness or joy to him. So I wanted to talk about that first. But then I also wanted to draw attention to the way that these words repeat throughout the poem. You see it as the first line here. You see it here, repeated again. You see it in the second line of this stanza, and then you see it at the very end of this one. Because those lines repeat, it creates kind of a rhythm within the poem, so I want you guys to pay attention to that. But then also, I want you to notice that there's a rhyme scheme sort of here. It's a loose rhyme scheme. It's not what you're used to seeing when a poem rhymes, but there is some rhyming, and so that contributes to the rhythm and the sound of the poem also. So, enough of that. What I'd like for you to do when you go back into this poem is to pick the lines and the words that just knock you out. And what I mean by that is that you just love it so much. And I realize some of you don't love any of the lines of any of our poems so much, but the ones that really allow you to see the diver's passion, maybe the lines that allow you to see what the diver's doing, anything that you like that the poet did, because I think it's a beautiful poem. And it's something that we probably don't stop to think about too much, about what do these athletes do when their body no longer allows them to do the thing that they love so much. So pick out 2 or 3 things that you really, really liked about this poem, or things that you are confused about or have questions also. That's always an option. And then comment. So select and then hit the comment button and then tell me your thoughts. And remember that that's what I am looking for here. There's not a right or wrong answer. What I'm looking for is, can you explain your thinking? Can you go into a text and tell me what you think about that, or what you notice, or why you like it? And then if you are able to, I'd like for you to share this with a classmate. I don't want you to stress out if that classmate does not respond. If you, at the end of the day or after a period of time, have had no response from them, you may certainly go ahead and turn that in. But I do want you to attempt to share it, because interacting with other people and getting their thoughts and ideas is part of what makes poetry discussion powerful, because we're learning from each other and we're looking at things from different viewpoints. And that's something that's going to serve us well later in life also. I'm going to jump back to the assignment just real quick for a second, because we are in the process of writing free verse poems ourselves. And so when we read these poems, it's important to think about, how can I use the techniques or the tools that this poet used in my own writing, or what can I take and apply to my own writing? How can I grow as a writer from after having interacted with this poem? So some of your own experiences with sports or sports fandom may have an edge to them, a sense of what happens when the body can't do what the athlete wants it to. These are poems too. You know, we talk about writing about life experiences and triumphs and, oh, when we won the big game, but what about those times when you lost and it was rough and it was hard and your heart broke? Those are things that you can write about too, guys. So I love you and I miss you. I hope you're back in school soon. Reach out if you have any questions or you need help with anything. Bye, guys.